The stage lights were blinding, far brighter than anything 14-year-old Ravi had ever seen in his small village in northern India. The massive crowd murmured in anticipation, and the judges whispered among themselves as the timid boy stepped onto the stage, barefoot, with an old guitar strapped across his thin shoulders. He clutched the neck of his guitar like it was his lifeline. The guitar was old, scratched, missing a string, and slightly warped from the heat, but to Ravi, it was sacred. It had been his father's. The host smiled nervously, glancing at the boy. "What's your name, son?" "Ravi," he replied softly, his voice trembling like the strings under his fingers. "And what will you be singing today?" "Hotel California, sir," he said, his accent heavy, but his tone steady. A few people in the audience chuckled. The judges exchanged surprised looks. The Eagles classic wasn't an easy song, not for a professional singer, let alone a barefoot boy from a remote village. But when Ravi closed his eyes and strummed the first few chords, the world fell silent. Ravi had grown up in the narrow lanes of a dusty village, where music was a luxury. His father, once a street performer, had played the same guitar at weddings and markets. They didn't earn much, a few coins, some leftover food, but when his father played, everything felt magical. But life had its cruel ways. One monsoon night, as the rain lashed against their fragile roof, Ravi's father fell ill. The fever worsened, and the small village clinic couldn't help. Ravi sat beside him, clutching his hand, whispering prayers into the human air. His father smiled weakly and whispered, "Promise me, Ravi, you'll sing for people. Let the world hear you, even if it never heard me." The next morning, Ravi woke up to silence. He kept that guitar ever since, repairing it with wire, tape, and faith. Every evening, he sat on their broken step, singing songs he barely understood, mimicking the sounds he heard on the old radio his father had fixed. Hotel California was one of those songs. He didn't know its meaning then, but he felt it, the loneliness, the haunting melody, the bittersweet calm. It became his lullaby and his father's memory. A traveling music teacher once passed through the village, and heard him sing. Amazed by his raw voice, he recorded a short clip, and posted it online. That clip, a barefoot boy, dusty hair, singing Hotel California under a flickering lantern, went viral overnight. The boy who had never left his village suddenly got a call. A famous reality show invited him to perform live. The villagers collected money for his bus fare. One man gave him a shirt. Another gave him sandals. The schoolteacher pressed a note into his hand that said, "Make us proud." When he reached the city, everything felt overwhelming. The tall buildings, the noise, the cameras. But Ravi remembered his father's voice. "Let the world hear you." Back on stage, his hand shook as he began the intro. On the dark desert highway, the moment his voice broke through the air, the audience fell into a trance. His tone wasn't polished, but it carried something deeper: pain, love, and longing. His pronunciation stumbled at times, but every note was soaked in emotion. As he sang, the massive LED screens displayed images from his audition tape: the small mud house, the broken guitar, the glowing lantern. His voice cracked slightly as he reached the chorus, "Welcome to the Hotel California." Such a lovely place. Tears welled in his eyes. In that moment, he wasn't performing for fame or judges, he was singing for his father. Every note was a letter to heaven. The audience stood still. One judge, a stern music producer known for his bluntness, leaned forward, eyes glistening. Another judge pressed her hand to her heart, whispering, "Oh my God." When he reached the final line, "You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave," his voice faded into a whisper. The last chord trembled in the air, then silence fell. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, a single clap. Then another. Then the entire hall erupted in applause. One of the judges, a woman known for never crying on camera, wiped her tears and stood up. "Ravi," she said softly, "you didn't just sing a song, you told us a story. Your story." Another judge, his voice breaking, said, "I've heard Hotel California 1,000 times, but tonight it felt like the first time." Then came the sound every contestant dreamed of, the golden buzzer. Confetti rained down as Ravi dropped to his knees, clutching his guitar, tears streaming down his face. He looked up toward the ceiling and whispered, "I did it, Papa." After the show, videos of his performance flooded the internet. Millions watched. Comments poured in from all over the world, people saying they cried, that his voice touched their soul, that his story reminded them of someone they'd lost. A week later, a music foundation offered to restore his father's guitar, and give him a full scholarship to study music. When reporters asked him what he'd do next, Ravi smiled shyly and said, "I'll sing until my father can hear me from heaven." Months passed, and Ravi continued to rise. But he never changed. He still played that same guitar, still sang barefoot, still closed his eyes every time he began to sing. At his first international performance, standing in front of thousands, He began once more, on the dark desert highway, and somewhere in that melody, in the echo of every string, you could almost feel a father smiling, proud.